All change in Westminster. A Labour government after 14 years. What does this mean for Europe? Welcome to Bridge the Channel. The Labour Party has triumphed in the UK election, and Keir Starmer is now the new Prime Minister of the UK. What are three lessons of the UK election result for the rest of Europe? First of all, this was not a ravishing endorsement of the Keir Starmer project or of the Labour Party. Of course, in terms of seats, this is a massive majority for the Labour Party, but if one digs deeper into the results, we will see that this was not a grand wave of enthusiasm for the new government. In fact, the Labour Party won barely a bit more of a percentage of the popular vote than what it used to do under Jeremy Corbyn, a very unpopular leader back in the day. What is more important in my view is also that this massive new Labour majority comes 5 years after the Conservative Party under Boris Johnson had won a big majority of its own. And what this shows to me is that majorities nowadays in the UK are quite fickle. The electorate is quite tired, is quite distrustful of politicians, one might even say is quite grumpy. Governments that do not manage to deliver to their voters very quickly actually have to deal with a very short supply of patience by the electorate. The second lesson of the UK election concerns the rise of populism, and in particular what to do about it. This election takes place 8 years after the Brexit referendum, and one can see it as a bit of a revenge of the losing side of that referendum, of the progressive liberal pro-European side against the Conservative Party and its allies. The way this happened was, of course, that for the first time in history, the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats managed to coordinate perfectly to take advantage of the UK's electoral system and to unseat the Conservatives. There is no better example of what this anti-populist mobilization can do than what happened to the far-right populist party of Nigel Farage, Reform UK, that won 14% of the vote but only managed to win 5 seats. And of course, the result of the UK election came just a few days before the second round of the French parliamentary election, where again you had a big mobilization against the far right that kept Marine Le Pen's party from coming to power. So what this means is that perhaps we need to be a bit more sophisticated and nuanced about this narrative of the rise of the populist far right that we have been dealing with over the last decade. If the other side of the political divide is just as capable of mobilizing itself, is just as capable of thinking and acting politically and strategically, and perhaps it is able to show that the populist far right is not really the majority of European societies. The third lesson that we have to take from this UK election has to do with the way voters of immigrant background, and particularly of Muslim background, vote, and generally how they become energized in today's European politics. In the particular case of the UK, this became very evident in the results in 4 seats, safe Labour seats, that actually were lost to independent Muslim candidates who campaigned almost exclusively on the question of Gaza and the question of Palestine. Now, of course, this may be a coincidence. The question of Gaza may not be there always, but it does show that voters of immigrant background will matter more in future European elections. Again, there are analogies here with what happened in France, was a huge mobilization of immigrant voters as well between the 2 rounds of the French parliamentary election. So, what does this all mean for the EU-UK relationship? New Foreign Secretary David Lammy is a well-known pro-European. His first trip has been to Europe, in Germany, Poland and Sweden. He has spoken of the need to deepen the trade and economic relationship between the two sides. And if nothing else, I think what we will see is a government with a much better, much more positive and much more trusting attitude towards the EU. And it's only fair to say that we should also hope for Brussels to reciprocate on this count. We will need to see what kind of government will be formed in France, and France is a pivotal country for the EU-UK relationship, and of course we will need to see what will happen in the coming US election in November, which may change the calculations of the new Starmer government quite radically. We will be here to analyze all of this in Bridge the Channel, of course. Until next time, take care.